Welcome everybody to the launch of our new product. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been a long time since we've done some sort of launch like this, so incredibly exciting on the 4th of November 2020 for data sciences. I know everybody's got a big question on your mind, and I'm going to answer it. So Mark Slade made a deal with me. Mark is a bit follically challenged, and he asked if I could perhaps help him out with that. So that's really the answer to the question you're asking, is why is my hair so long? Now that we've got that out the way, as I said, it's very, very exciting times for us. It's a big auspicious time for data sciences. It's a platform that we hope will provide a lot of interest in our customer base, and we've spent a long time getting to this point. Just from my side, just the agenda. First, we'll start off with some commentary from Werner Kutsia, who's been really leading this product and this launch to the point where we are today. We'll follow that up from a perspective from an enterprise business owner around what their thoughts are around moving to the cloud and some of their experiences. And lastly, we'll have a live demo in terms of what the platform actually looks like. In between that, please, any questions or answers, you are able to put those up on the screen, and also we will have some polls in between all of those sessions and in between the demo. So please, if you can help us out with that, that would be great. Give some feedback that we can use. So without any further ado, Werner Kutsia, please go ahead and introduce us to OXIDE.
Thanks very much, Adrian. Welcome everybody from my side. It's really great to have you on the call with us and to share this with you. It's fallen to me. I drew the short straw, and therefore you'll have to listen to me for a couple of minutes on this, but I hopefully will be able to do this justice. What we're going to be focusing on today really is the rise of boutique clouds. And what do we mean by this? Well, we all know that about a decade or so ago, maybe even a little bit further, a bookstore company named Amazon kind of started something very, very different. And they decided that they had some spare capacity in their data centers, and they wanted to find a way of monetizing this. And lo and behold, they actually established a little-known brand at the time called AWS. Obviously, fast forward a decade and a half, and cloud computing, the words of IaaS and PaaS and SaaS and all those type of terminologies have taken over, in our vocabulary as IT professionals. So with them, they really created a whole new market, a whole new way of doing IT infrastructure. And at the time, really what it was all about was really just finding a way of moving your workloads into their data centers. What has happened since then is actually spawned a whole bunch of different ideas around cloud, and the nuances in that has become exponential. So what we've seen is that there's been a plethora, almost a smorgasbord of cloud providers that have started to build their businesses on these platforms. And this has brought to rise the boutique cloud provider. What do we mean by that? Well, clouds obviously have to be big. Well, maybe that question is a little bit loaded, because big is relative when it comes to cloud providers. AWS is, by revenue, they are larger than all three the next guys in the market combined. This year, they increased their revenue by 33% alone, which is a significant increase in terms of what you'll find in this market. But size is really, determined by what is required and needed with customers. So perhaps at this point, we can launch our first poll and just get your view on what kind of cloud providers you're currently using. We can see on the screen there's AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. You may have heard of things like Heroku and DigitalOcean or Vultr, Linode. And it'll just be interesting to see what is happening in you, our customer base, today, and which ones are being used. So we'll give you guys another 5 or so seconds. We don't want to spend too much time, just to kind of see what the results is. We don't really have a drum, so we can't do a drum roll. But what we can do is actually just show you how this is progressing. Yeah, Abby, I think you can. Yeah, it's quite dynamic. We're seeing the results right now. You should see them. So we see a even split between the two big clouds with and hyper service providers that we have locally. AWS and Azure, about 75% of the votes, as you can see there. Google Cloud, very, very small. And I guess the reason for this is their local presence. And that really is the crux of where boutique cloud providers come in. So you may have heard of things like DigitalOcean and Heroku, but where are they within the South African space? And what value do they add in terms of the platform as a service landscape? What also has been quite interesting is that it turns out that raw size isn't always the most attractive option for organizations. I would almost call the legacy cloud providers, although they are the biggest ones, we find that it's quite difficult to choose and to work with them. And the complexity that is actually introduced on their platforms can sometimes be quite overwhelming. Within South Africa, there's a huge demand in cloud skills. And we find that organizations from enterprise to small and medium-sized organizations are struggling to adopt cloud due to the lack of skills within the country. Also, enterprises are shying away from committing entirely to a single stack or some monolithic platform and the services that they have in place there. What we also see is that some of these services on the hypercloud scalers is very difficult to integrate, and you need a high level of expertise to actually turn them into a functioning enterprise-grade platform that requires constant maintenance as well. So although we have a plethora of services that we can use and the ability to consume them is being greatly enhanced from what we had in the past, it introduces a new layer of complexity with that same level of abstraction. So multi-cloud allows us then to focus on several specialized clouds. And this is a strategic decision. This is not to say that you have to go multi-cloud or that multi-cloud is better or worse than a single provider. But I guess that if you squinted hard enough at your own organization, you would find that you are using multiple cloud services already within your organization. And you might find that they are broken down into infrastructure as a service components. Perhaps certain workloads are lying on a platform as a service components or specific clouds, or you might even be utilizing specific SaaS applications that have allowed you to adopt the cloud in a certain way. So multi-cloud is really a very, very broad description that allows us to actually start specializing in different needs of our organizations. Really, the thing that's been driving this, the ability to split out our workload, is cloud native microservices. For us to be able to do this, we've had to refactor and re-architect our applications. And there's been born a whole bunch of cultures, the DevOps practices, FinOps practices, and a whole plethora of providers and tool sets that facilitate the splitting out of these workloads and applications across potential multiple clouds. So traditionally, you might say, well, it's, we're going to run something in AWS and something in Azure. We might use a third SaaS cloud, but we're also talking about actually splitting these out over regions within the areas. So what's some of the trends and technologies that we see rising and that's been leading us as data scientists towards launching OXIDE PaaS? Well, software, although it's becoming easier for end users to consume it, and we really love what's been happening. It's so simple to access applications through our devices that we're running. The crux of this is that the complexity of those applications in the back end is increasing exponentially. And therefore, things like technology automation and that type of provisioning is becoming a key aspect in being able to keep operational costs down, being able to manage large estates that serve a global market from something like a platform as a service, rather than trying to manage old legacy ways of doing infrastructure. There's a huge explosion in SaaSification of applications. And this is not just whitewashing or rewashing old legacy applications by hosting them in a different data center. We're really talking about turning an application into a true SaaS product. And with all of this, multi-cloud has become something that we are working to, that organizations are working towards. The next phase of this is in fact having distributed cloud compute available, and not necessarily just at points of presence, but actually rather having compute at points of need, closer to our customer base, where it relies on meeting factors such as compliance and latency to ensure that the customer experience is as good as we can provide it within the local context. So specifically over the last 2 years, just 1 or 2 graphs here, multi-cloud adoption has doubled from 2016 all the way through to 2018, and this is across the key providers, or the big main providers out there. So we can see that there's a huge uptake in multi-cloud as a strategy in this fashion. And we're going to touch back on 2 things: the platform as a service component, and then also the multi-cloud component, and how that could benefit businesses within the South African context. The real issue that we face in South Africa is the lack of locally based PaaS and SaaS options. We obviously, the poll that we saw, the majority of organizations are going to the big guys because they have their local presence and comply to local governance, and they comply to latencies, and this is what we can have. But you might find that there are other services like DigitalOcean and Heroku that changes the game and are available across the globe in various other data centers, but their local presence isn't there. So we're limited to what options we have in adapting to global pressures and global changes in our market. So with this then is where we saw the opportunity for data sciences to really diversify the product sets that we bring to market. So as you know, we have about 85 customers locally within South Africa. We value you guys. You're part of our community, and we work closely with our customers. We have about 150 years of experience of working with enterprise organizations, with enterprise class solutions, and really ensuring that our businesses and our customers are serviced in a world-class way. And for this, we've been globally recognized, and we've also proven the innovation that we bring to the South African market with next generation technologies. So we believe that the same kind of service that we're giving to our enterprise customers today, how can we expand on that by helping and assisting organizations in their cloud transformation journeys that they are facing, and provide a different option to what is currently out there in the market. So with this then is why we launched OXIDE Platform as a Service. And it's really to provide another option of enterprise-grade multi-cloud platform as a service offerings to the South African enterprise and business organizations. And our purpose is to democratize that cloud-native computing and provide all businesses, regardless of size, access to an enterprise platform as a service experience, which we believe the local market really, really deserves. So with that then, we're going to go into why OXIDE as opposed to any of the others. And really, this is a complementary way of looking at things. So the real key thing here is that it's local. Data sciences will be looking after locally hosted points of need within the South African borders. We will be billing based on South African rand, so there's no surprise bills or impact of rate of exchange, which is part and parcel of dealing with an international organization, right? There'll also be local support. That's the people that are supporting your current infrastructure from data sciences right here within South Africa. So this really, really changes something because of the nature of how data sciences work. You know that you can pick up a phone when you have an issue and speak with an engineer, or get escalated right up to our MD within a couple of steps should you have any queries or any transition. And this is a really, really big differentiator that an organization like data sciences can bring to bear. Our local partners is more people that live in South Africa that we are going to be partnering with to deliver OXIDE as a service. And the other thing is, no one's journey is exactly the same. So we are able to tailor this multi-cloud to suit your needs. From a platform perspective, it is easy to deploy, it is easy to scale, and easy to manage. And these are really, really the key things we start looking at how small companies are utilizing cloud technologies and being cloud native to exponentially scale their businesses and turn into a unicorn overnight, seemingly. Well, the reason is that their technology platforms are not embedded in technical debt and allows them to actually perform at those levels. So what we're going to be able to do with OXIDE is deliver runtimes of various application sets. We'll be able to automatically scale vertically or horizontally based on performance requirements, and we'll be able to manage day two operations at a very, very simple way, integrating with various tool sets that are currently being used by organizations out there in the market. So maybe just to have a look at some of the other product offerings that we have there and delve into a little bit more about what OXIDE really is built upon. Native designed as a cloud platform. It is based on containers already. So the entire platform runs in containerized application sets. So it's very, very simple to deploy on it. It offers that full platform as a service orchestration layers with built-in tools for automating the scaling, the deployment through your CI/CD pipelines of your applications, and management through whichever interface you would require, either API or the normal user interface, with pre-curated certified software stacks that are in use today in organizations. Obviously, it won't be enterprise if it's not high available, if your applications aren't able to stay up during maintenance timeframes. So zero downtime upgrades, your sessions and data replication is looked after. Everything is software defined. Also, containerization is key, and infrastructure delivery is what gives us an edge in being able to actually provide this not only as a public service, but also as a turnkey private platform that we could host within your own data center. And this really starts creating very, very interesting points that we can work with you on. So we've mentioned some popular stacks, and maybe what we could do here is run another little poll and just kind of get an idea from the audience as to what are some of the application environments that are currently being coded on within your organizations. So we've got there Java, we've got PHP, Python is always a popular one, Node.js, .NET. Thank you very much for the interaction. This is great. We're seeing that. So we've got about another 5-10 seconds that we're going to be running this. So get your votes in so that we can share that with everybody. It'll be really great to see.
Thank you, lovers.
There you go. Love it. A lot of Python guys, eh? Really, really good.
Java as well.
So I think let's we don't have a drum roll as I said before, but Avi, you do a good impression with clicking the buttons. Yes. So as we can see, this is quite interesting. Java is still very much utilized within organizations, at least within our sample set that we've got here today. .NET, another big one, and Python obviously being one of the leading ones out there. So thank you very much for interacting with us on that. You can clear the results. So we look after the security updates, the latest releases, all of that for not just what's on the screen here today, but quite a few more. Also, the ability to bring your own is built into the platform natively as well. Key areas then that really make an advantage to your business is the ability to provide simple compute, simple to manage, easy to automate, and uniquely capable of delivering a multi-cloud experience to organizations. So just to expound on that, because really this is where things are very different. We're able to provide an on-prem OXIDE platform or region. We also will have the data sciences public region that will be launched. And we also will have the option to co-locate another region, either in a different data center or even on something like AWS or Azure, which means that it really plays into being able to step you into various different architectures when it comes to deployment patterns that you might want to employ with your cloud journey. What this gives you then effectively is the ability to move development, applications through development, testing, and into production, either on dedicated infrastructure within a hyperscale cloud or within your own data center or from a single pane of glass. And this is a powerful thing, which really allows us to differentiate something within the local market, because that truly puts us at a point of need rather than a point of presence. So the roadmap for OXIDE within South Africa, we will be launching today Johannesburg 1, which will be hosted in Terrico. The roadmap for us is planned to have a second location, Johannesburg 2, probably in the first quarter of next year, calendar year, which will be located in Gallo Manor, which will give us 2 regions, public regions within Johannesburg, that will offer these platform as a service componentry. Then, based on demand and visionary roadmap, we will look at deploying another location within Cape Town. And based on working with our customers, we actually could also look at doing AWS or Azure-based ones. So this is really exciting times for data sciences. We will be rolling out this roadmap, keeping our customers updated as to where we are tracking, and being able to provide this. We'll also be following up these sessions that we're having today, post-launch, with deeper dives into the technical side of things, into the business value side of things, and probably some of the how-tos on how to adopt OXIDE platform as a service within your organization. So we're really, really proud then to launch our new website for this, which we would really invite you to go to after this the session. It's at oxidecloud.co.za is where you'll find the home of our platform, with more information, subset of solutions that you can start looking into. There's also a pricing calculator that will actually mimic exactly what you will be experiencing within the platform itself. And then we'd love to draw your attention to the registration button, where you can register for a 15-day free trial of the platform. So with that, it's really great to have you on board and to listen to us. And I'm going to hand back to Adrian.
Thank you very much, Ben. I mean, I think it's really exciting. I think it's a very unique offering that we have. At the moment, I think, we are going down this journey, and we hope that it's going to be an exciting one for us, an exciting one for you, our customer. I think we're going to run another poll as well at the moment. Yes. Okay, Avi, if you could run a poll there. So what would you consider hosting private code repos such as? Yeah, we've got some votes coming in here. Doesn't look like there's many Nexus people out there. All right, I think we can show the results there. It seems to be overwhelming. GitHub seems to be the one of choice. And with that, I'd like to introduce John van der Veen. So John joins us. As you can imagine, John's had many years of experience in enterprise operations, generally in financial institutions, been in many of them over the years. Over the past several years, John has been involved with large-scale open source database and automation projects in some financial institutions. But his key function is to provide cloud-based on-prem platforms to service developers and production environments, and effectively allow those organizations to follow the journey into a larger cloud organization. We've had a lot of experience with John, and we worked with John before, and we asked him, and he was very kind to do some work on the OXIDE platform and beta testing, and get a view and feel for what this platform can do and how it could impact enterprises around the country. So John, thank you very much for spending some time with us today, as well as your time spent on the platform. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege.
Thank you. So John, what has your experience been in helping organizations, especially enterprise, move into the cloud or as part of their cloud strategy or cloud journey?
Over the years, one of the big benefits of delivering solutions in cloud is that it's fast. It reduces the requirement for physical hardware, and you can trade off your capital cost for variable cost. And all of these are obviously big benefits for those organizations to be cost effective in what they're doing.
Okay, right. So that's obviously what we're hearing in the market at the moment. As an enterprise customer, what would be the move away from the kind of traditional enterprise software product stacks to more, open source type of environments?
So, I mean, if you look at the traditional enterprise software licensing like MySQL, Oracle, these things can become extremely expensive when over time, and you can do some cost optimization. You can reduce your footprint and CPU counts and that and port counts. But in the end, I mean, you've got to be a little bit more, you've got to be a little bit more extreme when you want to really get the benefits. And that's why we typically look for open source as that big benefit driver for cost reduction. And the open source has become pretty much enterprise capable at the moment. It's very much the same service.
Yeah, a lot of customers are looking at it as an alternative. Right? In terms of moving towards an open source platform, what would you consider your key considerations in doing that?
I mean, looking at the open source, definitely is, do we have a support structure out there? Is there a community that we can go to? How well is that open source product geared toward the enterprise? And finally, is how stable and how much transformation is required to actually move from one product into an open source stack.
Okay, all right, great. And what was your strategy in terms of moving towards cloud's native applications?
So, I mean, for us, we've been very fortunate to work with data sciences in the past on a product called Stratoscale, which gave us an AWS type of capability like 4 years ago prior to them landing in Cape Town. And we could start learning and moving to open source databases and understanding how VPCs work, and get the developers to start working with AWS compliant APIs and get them ready for their transition into the bigger cloud.
I guess that's quite important, moving away from traditional to something completely
new. And having the right partner.
And in terms of that, I mean, in terms of the developers, what are their requirements from a servicing perspective? What do they want from you as a service provider?
Developers would typically come to us, and what they want to do is they want to rapidly deploy. They want to spin things up, spin them down when they're no longer required. They want to fail, and they want to fail fast, and they don't want to be penalized for those failures. And they can reconfigure on the fly, and that's what cloud gives them.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, no, I think there's a number of challenges that organizations, especially enterprise, face when trying to service your customers using the traditional infrastructure technologies. I mean, what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at the traditional way of delivering hardware, you've got to order it. It's a 6 weeks wait time. You've got to get in data centers. You've got to cable it up, and soon enough you're waiting 3 to 6 months to get the product into a position where you can actually develop on it. If you have a startup out there that's deploying on a cloud, they can do it in 15 minutes. They can have the same solution running there, and they beat you to the market, and your big expenditure becomes irrelevant.
Yes. So you're basically late to market. Okay, and then lastly, I mean, from your experience so far of what you've seen of OXIDE as a platform, driving services and helping service the requirements of big organizations. How do you believe this could help or benefit other organizations?
So if you look at OXIDE is, the front end is very simple. It's very quick to deliver. I mean, it spins up something within 10, 15 minutes, which the bigger cloud guys do. But the simplicity of provisioning those items is really what it's a winner. And it handles the density and the reliability that you need from a cloud provider.
Yes, I think that's quite key. The servicing, that enterprise service is very important to us, as well as make it easy and fast and hopefully cost effective. So hopefully what the platform will bring, and we're hoping to get some feedback around that. So John, thank you very much for your time. As I said, not only today, but also all the time you spent, demoing our product and testing it out. It's very much part of us driving this service to the market. And thank you very much for your time.
Awesome, thank you, and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Some customers can get on and register.
Well, you got 15 free days, so I'd suggest you do that. So now I'm going to hand over to Karen Ullman, who's our managing director. This product is so easy that even he's going to be driving it for us, and he's going to be with Richard Raymond, who's been our senior technical consultant on the platform. And as I move out, I think we have another poll which we'll run as well. Use my laptop.
Thank you, Abel.
Yes, so thanks for answering the question, guys. Obviously, with the databases, it's a question of nowadays with the modern options and technologies, we're all trying different things. But it's good to know what people are actually running and versus what people want to try out. And I think that's a big part of what we, another big part of what we're trying to achieve with cloud and DevOps type practices is to be able to test out anything and everything. So that's something that I think is very important to us as developers. But yeah, I think Jerry will take over now and take you through the demo.
Great. Thanks, Richie, and thanks for the presentation, giving an overview, Werner. Werner did mention that you can go afterwards to OXIDE Cloud website, so maybe I'll just quickly show you the registration process. We simply click on the register button, you go and fill in some of your details. Once you click register, the system will ask you to authenticate with your cell phone number. It'll send you a one-time PIN. After that, you can then directly log into the platform. So what you would see then after you've registered and got your free trial account is the OXIDE landing page for the application platform. And from here, you're ready to then start creating applications, creating your infrastructure. And your infrastructure you can create in multiple methods. So for the real hardcore dev guys, they prefer doing their own scripts, doing their own applications, and driving their creation of platforms through the API. So the API is within the system, and if you go to the help section, there's a full documented API that will show you how to drive it, whether you use Python as an example. We saw in the polls earlier, that's quite a popular programming language. So you can use Python, create your machine manifests and create your environments through the API. You can also store your manifests from previously created environments if you want to do some cloning of previous environments, and then you can simply click the import button right at the top, and you can then point it to your machine manifest, whether it be a JSON or YAML file, and it'll go and create your infrastructure and platforms based on your configuration. For those that are not that technical or want to do things very quickly, or maybe a custom environment, there are those pre-configured templates and environments that's curated to go and build specific environments that you might need. So one of those examples, for instance, is a Kubernetes cluster. For some of you on the call, you might have played around with Kubernetes. You might have tried to actually provision that on physical servers or hardware. Most of you know that it's not the simplest thing to do. But here within OXIDE, you simply click one button, install. You select your load profile. Sorry, that was WordPress. Let's just go to Kubernetes. So you go and select how you want to deploy it. Would it be for development environment, so perhaps only a single master and single worker, or for a production Kubernetes instance, you might want to spin up a multi-master environment and go and install perhaps Prometheus and Grafana within the Kubernetes cluster. You then basically just give it a name. So we'll just go Q demo, and we click install, and that will go into the background and start provisioning our machine. So we can just minimize that while that's busy provisioning. So there's all of the other types of templates that we can go and deploy. So if we go and talk about GitLab, you can also go and define your own GitLab environment that you might want to connect to your Kubernetes environment and go and deploy that for your repositories, code repositories, and help you with your DevOps pipeline. Then there's various others. What was the load balancer, Richie? What was it called?
Nginx, I think.
Oh, well, let's again look at so one of the other things is a traffic distributor. So typically some customers do a So sort of a blue-green type workload environment for the development and QA and test. So you can go and create different versions of the same applications, go and deploy them between different versions, and you might want to actually swap between those two versions easily during your test life cycle. So you can go and deploy a traffic distributor between those two different environments. So you can go and select how you want the traffic distributor to work between those two environments. And you could swing all the workloads to the one for 1 week and then swing it back to another one for the second week. So those type of things are quite easy to deploy directly from the front end using the marketplace. And that's where, as data science, we'll also be adding additional curated templates based on, I think, what we see our customers' demands are here. So we've got standard things like Kubernetes in there. We've got things like Postgres clusters, MySQL, MariaDB type clusters is already in there. But if there's any other type of database or other workloads that's not there as a predefined template, we can go and build those templates and make those available for our customers to use. So while this is deploying in the background, I'll show you the third method of deploying environments, and that's sort of a manual user interface to go and create environments. And if you see this pop-up page, it's quite easy to understand. Right at the top, we've got our different languages we can select. We also had one of those polls earlier to decide what type of languages you develop in. So we've got Java, PHP, Ruby, .NET, Python. You even can go into Docker. So if you don't want to use Kubernetes, you just want to spin up one or two small Docker images, you can go and select your image, go and query for whatever template you want. So I'll just go and query. That'll go and query the public Docker registries. We can also limit which registries obviously you can connect to. And then you can go and deploy directly from there based on that Docker template to give you the application that you need that's already Dockerized for your requirements. Other than that, if we say go back to PHP, we could see here we've got an application server that we might want to deploy for development. We can choose between Apache, Nginx, whatever application server we want, different versions. Once we've selected our version, we can then see, okay, well, how many of these machines we want to deploy. So we can decide if we want to go scale up or scale out type model, or maybe a combination of both. So before I show that, maybe just a word around how the compute works from a scaling perspective. So because of the container-based nature of the platform, we charge based on what we call a cloudlet, which is a mixture of CPU and memory on a 400 megahertz compute, and 128 megabytes of memory is considered a single cloudlet. So most of these application templates will at least require one cloudlet. So it's 128 megabytes of memory and 400 megahertz of compute. That you need to reserve at least one cloudlet. But we could then also decide how much we want to automatically scale based on demand. So if it's an environment that you're going to use for test dev, maybe you're only going to give it a single cloudlet to reserve. But then we can dynamically let it scale up based on demand. So the more users start working on the environment, as it needs more CPU or memory, it will automatically scale up based on the requirement, and you will be only billed for what is used. So as an example, we can see on the right the pricing. We can see what the minimum reserve pricing would be for these cloudlets. And then based on the full consumption, you can already see what would be the maximum billing if you consume all of those cloudlets based on what you select. So now similarly with this, if we now decide, well, we want the application server, so I'm maybe a developer, I want to develop an application using PHP as a platform, but I need it to be a highly available application connected to a highly available database in the backend. So we can now say for this development purpose, I want to at least spin up 2 Apache servers. And you can see what's happened here. As soon as we selected the second server, it automatically added a load balancer at the top for us. So these load balancers, we can now also go and select what type of load balancer we want. And that load balancer will then automatically balance the load between our web service tiers. Then we can go down into our application and database layers. So we can now go from a normal relational database, go and select whatever database we want to run, or we can go and select we want some scale-out database, so whether that be Mongo, Couchbase, Redis, or traditionally maybe you just want a standard MariaDB or Postgres cluster or MySQL. So say if I selected, in this case, MariaDB, I could then also say I want this highly available, so I want it automatically clustered. And then it asks me what type of clustering scheme I want. So I can do a master configuration, so both nodes will be read and writable. I can do a master slave configuration, or I can go and build a Galera cluster where all of the nodes are read and writable within the database cluster.
And if we were to look at the Postgres, what would
yeah, so I think maybe, Richie, that's a good question. So obviously we've got things like MariaDB, MySQL, we've got Postgres, but maybe we should actually ask the audience what we should actually deploy. Should we go MySQL or should we go Postgres? Let's see, what do we people, oh, there's quite a 50-50 vote now. I think it's going to be Postgres.
go Postgres? No, too much MySQL.
Okay, thanks, Avi. I think let's just show there. So basically it looks like Postgres is the winner in this case. It seems to be a more popular choice, I think, in enterprise. And I think, speaking to John earlier, I think even in the environments they've been working on was also mostly Postgres. So in this case, let's see, we want to actually deploy clustered Postgres in this application. So we're going to use Postgres as our database. But obviously for this web service tier, we've now got multiple web servers. So instead of deploying our code to all of these web servers, maybe we want some shared storage. So let's go and add some shared storage. But because this is a highly available environment, let's go even with the shared storage. Let's go and make that also clustered with multiple nodes to make sure that we've got some high availability even in our shared storage environment. So now all we really need to do is see what we're in for. In this case, it will be a minimum of about 300 Rand a month. If we consume all of the cloudlets, it could be up to 5,000 Rand a month of consumption. So we already know what we would be in for.
And that's also, what we're talking about here is a full 4-tier stack. And that's also, something to bear in mind. Is we're literally building the entire stack with a couple of clicks, and everything will be integrated for us. And I think that's what's really cool from a development perspective, is we can come in and say, this is exactly what we're trying to deliver, is this entire stack of technologies from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And this is what the power is of the environment builder that we're using right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, once we've given the environment the name, that will now go in the background and start deploying this multi-tiered application with the load balancer in front, talking to multiple web servers, backed by a clustered database that could be within a region, highly available across different nodes, or it could even be across regions. So that could be a clustered database within your own data center, replicated into our public data center, or multiple regions based on the deployment rules that we configure for each of these regions. So we can then monitor within the user interface. Here at the bottom, we can see all of these nodes are busy being deployed. So while we were showing that as the demo, we can see here in the corner, our Kubernetes cluster has finished deployment. So we can simply click on the link, and that shows us our newly deployed Kubernetes cluster. We go back, we can select maybe our very long Kubernetes key, shows us that we can actually log into our Kubernetes dashboard. We put in our token and we log into our Kubernetes environment. So it was literally about 7 minutes for the Kubernetes cluster to deploy. And by default, OXIDE also supports persistent volumes. I know a lot of our customers have struggled to actually get persistent storage connected to their Kubernetes environments. That's all native within the OXIDE platform, is to provide you with persistent storage on any of the container technologies that you can deploy within the platform. And similarly here, it also deployed our Prometheus dashboard as part of that template that we can now log in and play with. So that's where really the power of the Kubernetes platform. We can now also see, as these have been deployed, we look at our master node within our Kubernetes application tree. We can now go and also look at some add-ons for our Kubernetes environment. So also what's sometimes difficult is certificate renewals on Kubernetes platforms. So it makes certificate renewals a lot easier. There's also where we've got our GitLab integration. So if we also went into the marketplace and deployed our own local GitLab repository, we can now configure our Kubernetes environment to point to that local repo as well. You can do your cluster configuration, cluster upgrades directly from within this interface. So we can see here our Kubernetes cluster. We've got some worker nodes, our master nodes. And then from here, we can now go back and change some of the environment topology. So if we want to add more worker nodes, we want to add more master nodes, that is possible. You can go into the settings of the environment. But that's where we also now can go and load custom domains that need to point to our environments. If we want to enable SSL, there's built-in automatic SSL certificates within the platform, but you can also upload your custom SSL certificates. You've got direct SSH access into the environment where you can go and add your SSH keys. Based on the template of what you're provisioning, there's built-in firewalls, so you can make sure that the environments are secure. So by default, all of your applications and containers within an environment have got an internal private network that can talk to each other. But you can now go and expose, obviously, certain public ports that you want to have access to, or add public IP to some of your nodes if needed, and make sure that obviously your firewall rules are configured appropriately to manage that from a security perspective. So if we look at our tier 4 app, what we would typically do is on our load balancer, we'll see there we've got a private IP address, and we'll have private IP addresses for our web tier and database tier. But for our public load balancer, that's typically where we would now go and attach public IP to it. And that will then be added to the configuration. So as simple as that, one click, add that in. So typically also for development, as well as QA and testing, you'd want to collaborate maybe with some other users. So any of these environments you can go and share with other users in the environment so that they could help you with the development, help you with the deployment or QA and test. You can also hand over ownership of the environment. And then there's also, apart from the automatic vertical scaling that we saw earlier in the configuration, we can now also go and do horizontal scaling. So that's quite interesting when it gets to environments such as Redis. So maybe you want to automatically add additional Redis nodes based on certain load profiles. So we could now maybe say that in maybe within the Kubernetes environment or within Redis environment, you can monitor based on certain CPU consumptions over a certain period, that it must automatically go and provision additional nodes based on demand. And then maybe when the demand's not there, go and remove those nodes again. So it's really helps you with that elastic billing model. So you only pay for what you need. So if you don't need those extra nodes, why have 10 worker nodes if you only need 2? So it'll automatically go and destroy the nodes that you don't need. And then once you've got your applications developed, it's also very easy just to go to sort of the environment export, where you can go and export your machine configuration file. So that'll go and you can download the JSON or YAML configuration that you can share with other developers if they now want to deploy or clone the environments. So it makes it quite easy for cloning, even though you can also use the web interface to do some cloning of your workloads. So we can now see this 4-tier app is now also developed, so we can or created. So we can see here we've got all of these nodes. Let me just resize that. So you can see quite easily, we can stop our environment, change the topology, go in here to clone the environment, directly open it in the browser for the whole application. You can see at the front, obviously, we've got our load balancers, we've got our application servers, you can see our individual nodes. From there, we can go and directly, using the web interface, actually SSH into the VM virtual machine container that's been deployed, go and do some work in there without even the need of a third-party application like PuTTY to manage that container. And similar with the databases and the storage containers. Richie, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, so and that, I think what Jerry was referring to in the beginning was, of course, the different ways to interface to the platform. That the whole platform is geared toward development, that develops consumption cycle. So, whereas if you, and it caters to the different levels of development. So you might be a developer who wants to deliver you might be wanting to create your own containers, because you very often might be building your own container applications that you want to then be able to deliver to business. Well, then there's even a technology called VPS, which is basically a very, very, very small OS, which you can then build up and get your container builds correct, set up your manifests and your templates, and then you can have those pre-builds available to deploy for the rest of your team. Now, I know I'm also a developer. I spend a lot of time behind the command line, and the beauty is here, because the platform is being used. The platform and the technology we're using is all over the world. We have, I can't even remember the amount of people who are providing it internationally. But the point of it all is we have a lot of users and a lot of developers using it, and therefore there's a lot of content on places like GitHub. Not to mention the technology provider themselves provide us a lot of information and technology. So you can find that on GitHub. You can find examples of different things on GitHub. People are sharing and working just like we enjoy, or certainly I do as a developer. I enjoy that sort of collaborative community of, or the collaborative way the community works in order to deliver services and technologies. Because, at the end of the day, starting from scratch on your own can be a bit frustrating and time consuming. So yeah, it's got great GitHub, there's great GitHub presence up and down the stack, whether you're building the actual containers themselves or you're someone who wants to consume the services on top of the container. So like is shown in the marketplace, you'll be consuming a service. You might want, as Jerry indicated in the beginning, you might want a nice CI/CD technology like a GitLab or whatever. You can quickly consume that and off you go, integrate it to your Kubernetes, and you start pumping out you start working on your pipelines and your life cycles. So, that's, I think, what's really very nice is it delivers a lot in terms of the development to developers.
Yeah. But I think what's important, it's not just for the development side of things. What obviously we also understand is based on our history as data scientists. We work with big enterprises. We work with applications and infrastructure that can never go down, that needs to be highly available. And that's also one of the reasons why we've built this platform specifically, because it allows us to really provide that highly available platform experience from development all the way to QA and productionizing those applications. So we've got things like load alerts where we can go and set up, so it's not just that you can monitor the environment, you can also go and set up alerting when CPU consumption, memory consumption, storage consumption, etc., reaches certain limits. We've built the platform on the type of hardware that we normally supply our customers in their own data centers. So we've deployed an all-flash platform, enterprise servers with redundancy, things into highly available data centers such as Terraco, but also with the deployment profile. So when you go and check a clustered database or a Kubernetes instance, the deployment rules will make sure that those nodes are deployed across different nodes. Once we've got our second region, we'll have the option to deploy your clustered database or clustered workloads across multiple regions. So even if the whole data center goes down, your application is still available. So with the load balancers that we deploy up front, you can automatically then load balance not just between machines in the same data center, but between machines across data centers, whether that be on-premise or whether it be on our platform, or when we eventually also deploy OXIDE within one of the other public cloud data centers if the need arises. So it gives us all of that flexibility, but still making sure that we've got the enterprise robustness and support that goes with that. So that's about how much time we've got for the live demo today. We can really go into a lot more detail, specifically for the real techies, the developers. If you want to see more how we do some of the Kubernetes, how we do some of the automation, feel free to actually contact us. And otherwise, we've got the platform available for trials. So sign up, go and create your environments, and let us know, give us some feedback on what you're experiencing on the platform.
And in fact, just sorry, one additional thing on that sign up. So when the 15-day trial expires, so if you build something that you want to demo and your 15-day trial expires, the stuff will just stop. Your applications will just stop. So if you want to, you can actually reactivate the account a bit later. The platform at the moment will retain it for another 2 or so weeks. So for whatever reason, if there's a delay and you want to show someone something, if you really need to, you can re-enable the account and move forward.
Yeah. So obviously what we're showing you now, we've obviously got the sort of multiple different billing models. We've got the sort of prepaid type model for some of the guys that just want to consume a few little things. You can obviously see your usage per environment. And if you want to start playing, it's quite easy to automatically go and refill and update balances. But then obviously for the enterprise customers, we also have we're going to have a post billing type model. So obviously then some of the consumers or users within a group wouldn't not necessarily see the pricing. They could just see how their consumption is obviously used within their environments. And for development type environments, there's other options like automatic suspend. So if an environment for development is not being used, you can automatically let it suspend. So it would not use any cloudlets during that suspension, to also help save costs over time.
Yeah, no, great. I think so we didn't want to keep everybody too long. So we're getting close to our hour. But I think what's key is that over the next couple of weeks, we'll follow up with other informative videos that we will post on our website as well as on our YouTube channels. We will take you through how the billing model works, how the pricing works, how more technically inclined people will be interested in how to create environments. So it's quite important for us to ensure that from your perspective, if there's interest, that we continue to deliver information to you. And of course, I mean, if there is an interest from your business perspective, get a hold of us at Data Sciences, or get a hold of your salesperson. We're more than happy to come in and give a more in-depth deep dive into the technology or the how it works financially. At the end of the day, we believe that this is quite a unique offering in South Africa. We think it has a lot of value that it can add to large enterprises as well as SMEs and individuals. So please get out there, oxidecloud.co.za. If you're not a developer, good time to start. It's probably the easiest way to start developing. If you are, hopefully this will allow you to get code out a lot quicker and help you to finalize projects in a much shorter period of time. Your feedback is very important. If there's any questions, we can look at answering some of those questions after we close off the presentation. Otherwise, we do have a list of who's asked those questions, and we'll be getting in contact with you, directly through our sales engagement process. or through some other means. So I just wanted to say from the data scientists team, as well as the OXIDE team, has been responsible. Thank you for your time today. Hopefully it was at least interesting, and maybe it's tweaked a couple of opportunities within your business, which you may think may be of interest and help to bring value to market a lot quicker. So from our side, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.